Water.
Earth.
Fire.
Air. This is... What were you saying? This is Yip Yip.
Hooray!
Avatar Podcast. Jaman? Was it like a Jamaican thing? Do you want to watch Cool Runnings?
I am still disturbed by the... Sorry, I'm not close.
Troy is 18 feet away from the microphone.
Hey, I can yell, too.
Troy was in the other room.
Yes. Why don't we not have a better nickname for Iron Claw, Sparky-Sparky-Boom-Man?
Well, you just called him Iron Claw. That's kind of a cool name.
That's the only thing I can think of, because he's got a boot made of metal and a hand made of metal.
He's got a boot made... I think it's just his foot. It's not like a metal boot he puts on every morning. Have you seen his right hand? I have not.
He's like the mortal Iron Fist.
Okay, so we were talking about dogs earlier. I have a dog story for you, Troy. So, we were watching a friend's dog, and we took it for a walk, and this dog was like so ill-behaved. It was insane.
Of course.
And so it was like a big dumb chocolate lab, and just like...
Who's really babied and fed a lot of snacks, like just, like all good dogs.
All good dogs.
All good dogs that are kind of bad, but they're rewarded for bad behavior.
They all go to heaven.
Yeah. We know lots of dogs like this. Okay.
So we're walking. It's nighttime. Again, a semi-romantic walk. We come across like some really nice ornate grasses.
Like shrubs, like the nice manicured lawn.
And so the dog decides to like inch its rear end back up into these nice ornamental grasses and then has explosive diarrhea all over them. And then I had
It was mortifying.
And of course I had my little dog baggie to clean it up. And so the solid pieces I was able to secure into the bag. And then as we continued walking the dog, I just kind of dangled it in front of him as a reminder of the toxicity he put on the planet.
Yeah, Jordan's trying to shame the dog.
I just imagine this garden hose like spray everywhere.
It was the most traumatic event of my life.
Oh man.
No, I just was making it like deadly eye contact with Katie the whole time.
The dog's name is named after Luke Skywalker.
Which means his name is Luke Skywalker. He's not named after him. It's not like, yes, he shares the name of my grandfather, Luke Skywalker.
Well, then, not to continue with dogs, but I will. At our last family reunion, we had a couple of our cousins that were talking about good and bad dog bowel movement stories. Like, when you feed them this, it makes them react like this. If you feed them that, it makes them react in a really bad way. Oh,
what family reunion are you talking about?
For our grandparents' anniversary last year, I went outside for some fresh air, and we just happened to have three of our cousins from out of town talking about their several dogs that they all own and how
and their bowel movements.
Yeah, which dog goes poop the most smoothly, which dog has
I hate this conversation.
Yeah, well, sorry, but it kind of built to.
I wish we could have given that information to Luke Skywalker.
I don't know why watching these episodes have.
Well,
Welcome to Avatar, the Last Dog Podcast, and the last podcast you'll probably ever have to listen to because we'll cover anything and everything related to dogs, benders, and KitchenAid mixers.
Yes.
I'm Jordan. And I'm alone in the room. Everyone has left. It's me and Luke Skywalker and his toxic diarrhea.
I'm Katie.
And I'm T. Roy.
This is great. So today we watched 2 episodes. We watched The Runaway and we watched The Puppetmaster. Katie is getting her vocals correctly prepared. So The Runaway, it's an interesting idea. Like the whole... book 3 so far is centered around every character kind of getting their own episode kind of centered around them. The headband was all about Aang. The painted lady was about Katara. Sokka's master was about Toph. And now we have The Runaway. It's a joke, Troy. Troy has grown the biggest mustache I've ever seen. Ron Swanson would shed...
Beard. It's a whole...
No, it's mostly the mustache I'm looking at.
Don't mention me and Ron Swanson in the same sentence.
What?
I'm not a huge fan of Ron Swanson.
How?
Anyway, mustache, I don't...
Did you watch all of Parks and Rec?
I couldn't stand the show. Like, I couldn't stand
you
The
don't.
Office.
Okay, listen here.
All these
So
cultural favorite shows, I don't understand the point of them.
We're
But hey,
watching
let's not
Avatar.
talk about me being a hater. Let's move on to how great Toph. Thank you for letting me spell her name.
Troy has spelled it Toff to get the phonetics correct.
Tough.
Because Troy's sitting on our couch, half chair, half couch, all of good times. Troy turns around and is like, so how do I pronounce the characters' names? It's like, dude, watch the show, and then they will tell you exactly how to pronounce the names.
He's only seen it a few times.
Because
we
when they
wanna
talk
watch what?
about Toph,
As he checks his phone, tough.
no, as they talk about every time
As
I
they
want to
talk
take
about.
notes on my phone, they literally come up with something witty on the show. It's incredible. Like, the writers are just that slick.
Slick
Either that I'm
writers.
just that incredibly slow at taking notes. T-O-F.
Okay, so this episode, The Runaway, is a Toph episode, and so Toph gets the chance to be an agent of chaos, as seems to be her favorite thing. Do we enjoy the fact that Toph was just deciding to scam everyone and make a lot of money? Being a super rich girl, why did she feel the need for that?
Well, because they were low on cash, and she's used to a certain lifestyle.
Well, I feel like Toph is clearly very good at swindling, as seen in The Blind Bandit. She's like, oh yeah, I know how to work this system.
Yeah. No, and I was like, are they just in one town and they've done all the scams? I mean, at this point, they got to be running into the same groups of people, right? It was like, oh, here's this the scammers again.
There wouldn't be a one who was scammed in the area and be like, wait a minute.
So, a fun little fact, I don't like gambling, and it's always giving me the creeps. The last time I went to a casino, I couldn't stand being in there for more than 2 hours, if that.
Is it the stale cigarette smoke that just wafts through the air?
Okay.
Is it the unlimited soda? Unlimited soda, Troy?
Is it watching people just put money into a machine and then not getting any return?
Yeah, it's just I don't know, it's just, they might as well just be taking a lighter to their cash. But, so this episode was the first episode in the entire series where I was surprised around every turn, and I
What's going to happen next?
And I actually had a slight heart attack when Toph.
Oh my god.
We're going to get Troy a tattoo.
Okay.
When she starts scamming the scammers, I'm just like, oh man, this can only end bad. But no, she knocks it out of the park. No, there's an old saying.
How old?
Oh, it's however old that book Freakonomics is. No, there's a sentence in that book that says, morals is how you want the world to work, but economics is how it actually works. And so this episode really showed Toph going back to shady economics versus shady economics, and she knew the name of the game, and so it was scary, and it was exhilarating watching her just plow through all these scams.
The worst part is that Toph didn't pay any taxes on her earnings.
Just like somebody else.
Some
right?
political humor for you today.
Yikes.
I know, she probably went up 2 tax brackets at the same time.
Ugh. So,
Okay, wait. Also, any Toph-focused episode has to have this weird confrontation with Katara, which is super annoying to me. It's just there has to be that, oh, the two girls are fighting. And I don't know.
I think the personalities are set up for that cattiness because she wouldn't necessarily get into those kinds of grudge matches with Aang or Sokka because they're both pretty mild-mannered and are going to stand down, versus Katara, who is painted almost overly motherly at points, has to be her foil in that sense. But I do agree it was really weird, when they were training Aang, all of a sudden they're in a mud fight. Mm-hmm. That was weird.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, I thought it was kind of a throwaway episode. But then you have sprinkled in some really important things, like when Toph and Sokka are talking, having this heart to heart, and then Katara just looks naked in the water. I'm like, what's going on here?
I'm pretty sure she was naked in the water.
And then just crying.
Shame on you, writers. Shame on you.
Well, it's also the animators. Well, it's everyone's at fault.
Come on,
even
now.
you, Nickelodeon.
Yeah. No, it does drive me nuts to see those two constantly bickering and watching Aang and Sokka just be like, oh yeah, we're a couple of dumb boys.
Well, Sokka and Aang are only dumb boys when they're hanging out together
Yeah.
exclusively.
Right, but it's like, but then it just goes to show you that Katara and Toph are indeed maturing a little faster than the boys are, because the boys, they're still like, hee, and, they haven't really, they haven't matured yet. I don't even know if they're even going through.
Okay, we're going to send a letter to Katara, written by Toph, right, guys?
Oh, man. And they forgot that Toph is blind and can't read or can't write.
Which was nice.
Apparently,
Not nice that they forgot, but nice that they touched on it.
well, it's also nice to show that like Toph has just normalized her disability so much that like you just kind of forget about it. Like it's not something you consciously are like, oh, there's Toph, she can't see.
Yeah, they delivered another great Toph moment when they're like, Toph, you won't believe what I just found. And she's like, great, what is it?
Sounds like paper.
I'm like, wow, you guys are so inconsiderate.
So that poster, on there was some text that apparently reads, she disguises herself as a blind person.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What did you think about the scams themselves? Like her like bending like the rock in that dude's sleeve like back into the cup and using, I don't know, what was it, a game of cubes is like the rectangle sticks.
I wasn't put off by it. I thought, hey, they're doing the world a service, and they need some cash.
Yeah, they
and
need to get paid.
They're having a little fun doing it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, okay, I agree. I think they're totally fine to be scamming the Fire Nation. It didn't seem like that great of a town anyway.
Well, but I thought it was a little excessive. I mean, I agreed with Katara. It was like, okay, we got a little bit. I think we can stop.
Toph literally became Scrooge McDuck toward the end of that episode. Like, she was, like, counting these piles of money. Like, at one point, it would have been really great if she was using her bending to, like, literally swim through the money. I would have loved that. So when we get that
Okay,
remaster...
but I feel like you would have to put it in something. I guess you could have, like, dug out a hole, a trench.
Yeah, very easily.
Okay.
So when we get that remaster, when we don't have to look at Moi's animation style, which Troy made a mention like halfway through the episode, he's like, "Wait, is this a Moi episode?" And I was like, "It is a Moi episode."
Yeah, because every once in a while you get these funky faces, or it's like everyone's cross-eyed, and you're like, "What's going on?"
Sokka was like especially cross-eyed at many points in this episode. But now we have to talk about the star of this episode, and that is Hockey,
Yes, hockey.
who pulls a Luke Skywalker right on Sokka's hand right when we first meet him.
That's right. Just goes,
Yeah, not
decides
good.
he's not going to go to the dark side after all.
Okay, wait. We can come back to hockey, but I do
No!
want to mention where they're talking about the bad guy who's following them, and I feel like I'm not into third-eyed freak. It's like they keep saying it. It's like
Circus freak,
the
third-eyed freak.
It's like, oh, God.
It just reminds you of my grandma who calls everyone a freak. I think that's the
Yeah.
issue. Also, my grandma is literally the coolest person in the whole world, so we can have a whole different... After we get done with Avatar, the last dog podcast, we'll talk about the last grandma cast.
How about grandma freak?
Freaky grandma? Freaky grandma.
So without spoiling anything, do we get to
Yes.
go over the history of Combustion Man at all?
You will just have to see what happens with Combustion Man. What do you think's going to happen with that guy? Sparky.
I feel like once they get him talking, if he ever does talk, he might actually be like Pipsqueak.
Or maybe he just talks like this. Hey guys, hold on. I need to...
Okay, like when the guards were referencing, or I don't know, I guess maybe Combustion Man came and I don't think he was like, hey, I'm looking for these people.
No, because he can't talk. He probably walked in with like a poster and was like, you can't see, but I'm pantomiming him pointing to a picture that he drew. I'm assuming he's a really great artist. Also, probably a poet.
Maybe he's the one who did that Toph wanted sign.
Okay, so, Iron Claw, Combustion Man, Sparky-Sparky-Boom-Man, whatever you want to call him. So he's attacking the boys. They manage to slightly escape from him. The whole time they're being attacked by this big dude, I don't see a single Fire Nation guard in sight. Not impressed with the
Aang
guards.
makes the point that everyone's gone. So clearly what happened is that there was some deal with like the officials of the town and Sparky-Sparky-Boom-Man and was like, here, clear it out. I'm going to get the Avatar. Well, I don't know. He probably didn't say Avatar because he didn't want to like raise a fuss because at this point the Fire Nation still thinks Aang is dead. He was probably like, oh, I need to capture these kids who are like, causing shenanigans, and so they probably just like put this curfew, and everyone was gone, and he was just free to.
But did he write it down? Because again, he wasn't able to communicate that.
No,
like,
he probably
verbally.
did it through interpretive dance, because as we all know, Sparky-Sparky-Boom-Man is a man of the arts. He is a Renaissance man.
Is he?
I love Sparky-Sparky-Boom-Man because the lack of personality lets me project whatever I want onto him. Also, another thing about Sparky-Sparky-Boom-Man, if he has a hand made of metal and a leg made of metal, why doesn't Toph metal bend those?
There's a lot of plot
Let's
holes.
think about it. Toph could have just ran at him, squished the leg, and then he would have been Sparky-Sparky-Hobbleman.
Okay, something positive. Let's go back to Hockey and Momo's relationship. I feel like it got better, and then it's always good when Appa's like keeping them in line.
I think Appa keeps everyone in line. People think Katara's motherly. Appa is the patriarch of the show.
Yes.
Down with the patriarchy.
Yeah. Like freaking Toph. Katara, you're not the mom.
But then there was like this weird line toward Aang, which she was like, "Am I motherly?" And then Aang starts to mumble, and then Katara says like, "Stop rubbing your eye and speak clearly." And it was like, it was really off for me. And the whole like Aang pining for her at this point, the fact she said that to him, it's not good.
Okay, I do want to say this. Hats off to the animators for doing that on Aang. For people that aren't very familiar with body language, I love the fact that they made him rub his eye. It was an uncomfortable question. He did not want to look at Katara. And I've never caught on to that simple body language until a year ago. And so she goes, when she says, "Stop rubbing your eye," like she knew what he was doing. He's like, "Look at me."
Other things I'd like to talk about is like just how ridiculously practical this episode was. Like we get a sense of like needing some cash and they make it happen. And it happens another time in the series where like, oh, we were all out of money that King Boomy gave us. And so they actually like have to make those considerations. But then we get that other practical moment of like needing to feed Appa. And so we have Katara like stirring a pot of Appa soup and then bends it into his mouth. Like, how delightful. Like, I wish I was a waterbender so I could bend soup into my mouth. No utensils, the cleanup's a breeze.
Also, Sokka was pretty laid back and not like anal about the schedule, about how they need to get going.
Yeah,
right?
because
It's like,
Sokka was having fun.
right, hey, we got time to gamble.
Sokka's a hypocrite. He's like, well, I mean, this is directly benefiting us.
You know, Jordan,
Yeah.
I wish I was a food bender in general. Like,
Food bender.
be a lot less dishwashing, a lot less silverware to wear, just be able to just
Silverware to wear. That's
silverware to wash. I'm sorry.
Silverware to wear.
Silverware to wear.
That sounds like when you're playing chess, you're like, knight to b4. Okay, so speaking of the hypocritical siblings, we also have Katara being a hypocrite toward Toph stealing because Katara is very cavalier about stealing from the pirates in season 1. Mm-hmm. But maybe she learned her lesson. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay, did you guys pick up on after, you know, Toph and Katara have their little, we're cool now, right? And then Katara wants to go do not a heist.
The
what's it called?
ultimate scam.
The ultimate scam, right?
It was a heist.
Yeah, the ultimate scam.
I
And
love
then,
a caper movie.
and then the two boys like fall over and start foaming at the mouth. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw that.
yes.
That was a dead giveaway. It was a moi crappy episode. I was like, really, guys? Come on.
There was so much foam. I was gonna stop it so
Katie
you
could
could
tell
see it.
Jordan and I that she was going to rob the bank, and Jordan and I would still not fall over foaming at the mouth.
Hey, Katie, you want to give it a try?
No.
You'd be like,
Well,
Jordan
too
and
bad
I
they
would
didn't make.
both be foam at the mouth guys.
Yeah, it's too bad the boys weren't making that noise.
Writhing on the ground, drowning in their own foam. Holy Moses.
Like, if Katara was so motherly, how could she not turn around and say, like, I think the boys are having seizures?
Yeah, learn your lesson. Control your emotions. Okay, I appreciated the return of Officer Wangfire, or Wangfire as Officer Wangfire. That was a delight. Mm-hmm. Also,
He had a Ron Swanson mustache.
it was a beard. It was a full-on beard.
I thought it was more handlebar.
No,
Yeah.
what? You guys, Wangfire has a
I can
full
ride my bike with
beard.
no handlebars.
Guys, I have to... Wangfire's got a full beard. It's huge. It's the biggest beard I've ever seen in my life.
With handlebars.
All right, what'd you think about the wooden cage prison cell?
That's when I got confused. I just thought, I thought wood was part of the earth because it comes from trees. So the fact that,
Well, no, it's its own
Toph-
entity, its own life force.
I don't know, but for somebody that like me who this is the first time ever watching an episode like that, I'm like a wooden cage, easiest thing Toph could break out of. I could see why she would struggle with metal, but wood, earth. I mean, they gotta have the same nutrients in them.
What? No. If you eat a tree versus eating a rock, there are different things in there. Like if you're eating kale and someone's like, Troy, don't you know that kale and this bag of dirt have the exact same nutrient content? Just skip the process and just eat the dirt, Troy.
But why was that example? There's a difference, Troy. I mean, you're eating a tree and eating a rock. What the hell?
He said the same materials involved.
Okay.
No, the tree gets its power from the sun and from water and from the nutrients in the soil. It is its own entity. And so I agree more that a plant would be more
I just
associated
figured
with
that
water.
Toph can bend anything solid. That was it.
You're pretty solid, Troy.
Huh?
You're pretty solid, Troy.
That's besides the point.
Wait, when you guys go, huh? Yeah, keep talking over each other.
Huh?
Yeah, it's like the presidential debate.
Oh, God.
What?
Unpresidential debate.
No,
Oh,
I
just
did it.
shut
Okay,
up,
okay.
man.
Oh, God. You are the worst president in United States history.
I would be.
Okay.
Okay,
don't
so
like dogs.
so the wooden cell thing. They're like, oh, it's a wooden cell, as if they knew that Toph was Toph Beifong, the inventor of metal bending. Like,
Right.
no one knows that. Mm-hmm. And if they knew it was Toph, then they'd know that they were hanging out with Aang, the Avatar. I don't know. The whole wooden cell thing was a weird, and the fact they didn't know that Toph wasn't a firebender. Wouldn't you just make the assumption that if you're in the Fire Nation and you imprison someone, there's probably a chance they're a firebender?
Right.
Stupid.
Actually, as you come to find out, not all people from Fire Nation are firebenders.
Right, but if you are in an area where you're like, there's like 50% of us are firebenders. There's this girl causes shenanigans. No one's seen her bend fire, but no one's hasn't not seen her bend fire. Let's put her in the wooden cell anyway.
Yes.
I think it was just service to show Katara bending her sweat.
Something positive was the dialogue, I thought, between Toph and Katara, and I thought that was good that Toph was trying to work through those feelings, and Katara was there to support her, and at the end, Katara helped Toph write a letter to her parents. I thought that was good.
Hockey pieces out.
Okay, but do you think Hockey actually makes it to the parents? I mean, I don't know. How would Hockey know where to go?
Hockey seemed to imply that he knew where the South Pole was and refused to go, which makes me think that Hockey is the most intelligent creature on this series. So I'm assuming he could make it. But also, he's going to have to fly over the ocean. And if, like, Combustion Man's Raven has anything to do with it, Hockey's going to get eaten. So, I mean, I'm optimistic for
Basically,
Hockey.
they want Hockey to fly from the Fire. They want a Fire Nation Hawk to fly from the Fire Nation to the Earth.
Oh yeah, Hockey's definitely going to get shot down by an arrow.
I'm like, that was probably the dumbest move I've ever seen our characters
They
make.
sent Hockey to his death.
Yeah, pretty much.
They sent Hockey to die. They doomed Hockey.
Toph and Katara sent him to die
Without Sokka's knowledge.
without Sokka's consent.
He's going to take them to court. Okay. End the
and that's what happens
episode.
to pets.
Well, wait, we didn't even talk about Katara bending sweat.
I mentioned it.
Oh, God. Sorry.
Okay, what's your opinion of bending sweat? Sweat bending opinions. Go.
All right, Katie, you're up.
I liked it. I liked that she could create... No.
Water.
I liked that she was resourceful, and it was like, I can create my own water. Here we go. And,
That just leaves all sorts of questions like, can your urine be bent? I mean, clearly, you can bend soup.
right. So I feel like they should have been more resourceful this whole time.
God.
I want to make the point that this is the first time I've seen Katara sweating.
It's the first time she's actually exerted any energy.
Yeah, it's just like it's like oh, that's convenient.
Well, it was nice. It wiping under the pits. I was like, oh, good.
Okay, that pit scene was like borderline too much for me because like she's like got her hands tucked in the pits and then she like flings like an enormous amount of water. That
like-
girl has an issue.
Yeah, but at this point, at least we can actually say to get her master in waterbending down, she's literally had to put in blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh.
Wow. All right. Should we talk about the next episode?
What's it called?
The Puppetmaster.
You called it the Puppeteer earlier.
Boo.
I did?
Did you boo the Puppetmaster?
I
What's
did.
wrong with you?
Oh,
I don't know.
Troy.
I know.
Not
No,
impressed.
Troy was like so excited about the Puppetmaster when we were done. He was like, "Oh, you know what? Hama's the best villain of all time.
Well, she
Please
is.
elaborate."
better than Combustion Man so far.
Why? Combustion Man is the greatest knitter that we've ever seen.
Elaborate.
Go, Troy. Jordan's joking. Don't laugh.
I was gonna say, wow, that really took this. All right, no, but you got Azula and you got Zuko. Okay, their mission is to take over the world. Yada,
Are
yada.
you still in
No,
the...
I want to talk about this episode specifically.
Yes. So yeah, no, he asked me why I thought she was the best villain. I was like, well, do you want me to compare them to the other villains? Because
No.
I'll tell you straight up right now, the way that woman came off, she was like the last of the Southern Water Tribe. I'm like, great, okay. So she's got good morals. She's got then you listen to her character background. It's like, wow, she was helping her fellow tribes people fend off the Fire Nation. I don't want to jump too far ahead into the episode.
Do it.
But no, it's yeah.
Jump ahead.
This blew me away when she sees the full moon and you see her veins pop. And I'm like, what is she gonna turn into, like Gollum? She's gonna turn into Shrek? Like, what's gonna happen?
Why Shrek?
It's going to turn into Shrek
I
right
thought, like,
here.
first I-
Slams out of the outhouse.
Yeah.
Smash Mouth's playing.
Somebody
No,
wants
boo!
to-
I'm done. I'm gonna mute both your mics. Okay, so the gurgle sound that her veins make when she realizes she's in the midst of a full moon is disgusting.
She
Like,
might as well looked at that moon and said, "My precious."
it was gross. Like, she had a complete character transformation. Like, you watch, you know that there's something up with Hama pretty much from the beginning.
Let's say Katara is Spider-Man. Hama's straight up Carnage.
Why Carnage?
Because Carnage is that sick too.
Okay, what did you think about ghost stories at the beginning? I was like, why?
Ooh.
No, I was not into it. And then,
Because
and
it's
then
a kid's show, and that's what kids do.
whatever.
Yeah, have you ever been a kid?
No.
All kids
So-
talk about scary things.
Yeah,
like Shrek.
and then grandma comes and is like, hey, kids, why are you in this creepy forest? Because I'm here too.
Well, Grandma, why are you in this creepy forest,
Grandma, why are you lurking? Well, because we clearly find out that Hama's probably I don't know, checking in on her prisoners that she has. Why is Hama imprisoning people? To get a weird revenge on the Fire Nation?
Yeah, that was when I was in conflict, because I agreed with why she was doing it,
Oh, yeah?
Troy's like, yeah, I'd shackle some
but it was the
people up.
wrong target. She went after innocent civilians. She
Yes.
could have been going after firebenders.
Well, no, not all firebenders are enlisted in the fire army. I think she should have been going against the military.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I was like, Hama, I like your
Like your style.
I like
your
your
style.
grit.
Yeah, I like your agenda, but no, you don't go after the innocents. Those are just simple villagers. If you're gonna get back at the guards, the military, because if we look back at history, we can easily say that the Nazis from Germany were the same way. They just even though very few of them agreed with Hitler,
I doubt very few. I bet many agreed with Hitler.
maybe. But
Well, the SS, they had... Oh, yeah, they
wasn't
drank
that
the
only
Kool-Aid.
10% of Germany, the SS?
Well, the SS was just the special...
That's what I'm saying. They were the special small little group, right?
Right,
Hama
it wasn't
coulda-
the majority is what you're saying.
And so because of World War II, because of Nazi Germany, we've got these fantastic self-defense programs going on called Krav Maga. Police forces and military use that all the time. Unfortunately, you have to have really bad events in order for really great stuff to come out of it. And so Hama is she could have gone after Lord Ozai's special forces guy. She could have gone after Zuko. She could have gone after Azula. But no, she's had to stay in that village and pick on the village people.
The village people like the YMCA.
But she was pretty young when she was imprisoned and when she got out. I mean, you presume there was quite a few years in between, the flashbacks, how long she's been taking advantage or bloodbending.
Well, she
people.
did say that it was the first time she walked free for decades. So we could assume maybe at minimum she was captured for 20 years at minimum, using the term decades. Maybe she was captured when she was in her late teens. So, I mean, conservatively speaking, she was almost 40 when she got out, maybe.
Right. And how old do you think okay, we'll say...
She's got to be 700 years old now.
So you're saying she's probably been taking people for 20 years?
No, easy.
Yeah.
Okay, but there was 10 people locked up. I'm like, where are all the other people?
Well, don't you assume that Hama goes from village to village? In my mind, she's
Oh,
wandering around. Maybe people get too wise. She takes them out and then
Well, that's true.
Keeps on
I don't know.
moving.
She was the best villain that, I don't know. Yeah, she could have easily been just manipulating guards, getting closer and closer, and taking down the Fire Nation that way instead of. It's kind of weird, it's hard to sympathize with a villain who imprisons all these innocent people. Like, how does that really serve her? That, to me, that's just as empty as Zuko's endless journey to capture the Avatar. You don't get very far.
Well, I think Hama is like slowly getting revenge by just taking it out on anybody in the Fire Nation. Like, she just has like such a deep hatred of the Fire Nation. She'll do anything to cripple them just out of blind rage. So it's interesting that we're viewing Hama like
do what was done to her, and
right,
that's
needlessly imprisoned.
okay.
Yeah, so Hama is this really fascinating, tragic, resilient character, and it's like the Dark Knight. Like, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And Hama clearly is like transformed into a villain, but you can see exactly how she got that way, which I think makes for a very fascinating villain.
Yes.
And I don't even know if Hama is necessarily a villain, just more this like kind of corrupt character. And you get the sense of how she transformed throughout this. But yeah, just the trauma that this character had to have gone through to like watch her people systematically taken, like just abducted, just for the fact that they could bend water. And then for her to be abducted and be like the last one standing, I mean, just feeling that kind of like Aang in a way, like she was the last hope for the Southern Water Tribe in a sense. Like, I was the last protector, and then I couldn't do it. And then she's trapped in this cage for decades, being subjected to some pretty bad torment, like being shackled in this like an environment with like no humidity, like shackling you before they give you water to drink. I mean, she probably just went insane, I mean, she had to have gone through some sort of like psychosis.
Right, and let's go over the scorecard, right? All of our villains, right? Zuko captures the Avatar,
Are you still viewing Zuko as a villain at this point?
Undecided.
Yeah.
But when he was still a legitimate villain, captures the Avatar, and then, or maybe he didn't. Yeah, he did, but then he ends up getting saved by the Avatar, so that's -1 for Zuko. Azula shoots the Avatar. Everything thinks the Avatar is dead, but nope, he's still alive. So -1 for Azula. And then you got
what is this rating?
Combustion Man. He's out to kill Aang in the Aang gang, and he hasn't done it yet. But the Puppetmaster, in what the internet likes to call a savage moment, she completes her mission. Yeah, she wasn't really out to kill anybody. Not that what I could see. She just wanted to torture everybody. Her main mission in this episode that I thought was so brilliant was she wanted to pass on her bloodbending onto somebody else, and the only way Katara could save the day was to bloodbend the witch, the Puppetmaster.
Her name is Hama.
Yes, and she goes, "Thank you, Katara. You've completed my mission. Now you're a bloodbender." That was weird. Laugh.
That was a great impression. It's interesting that Hama, like, her desire in life kind of changed when she found out Katara was a waterbender. I mean, she wasn't as excited as you think like a normal person would be about that.
Well, as we've already addressed, she's probably has some sort of mental instability, isn't quite there 100%. Okay, hold on. Switching gears. What I enjoyed about them being at the inn, I don't know if I really enjoyed it.
Stealing their stuff.
We see Sokka, and we assume everybody has their own room, and it's probably the first time this whole trip that everyone's like slept separately, because everyone just kind of like crashes all together in a little huddle.
Well, Aang woke up in his own room on the boat in the beginning of this season.
Yeah. Okay. But even further about Sokka is just like another example of his gut feelings of just feeling like something's not right and then decides to snoop through the house, which was good. And it's good that he did.
What was going to happen if Sokka didn't snoop? Do you think Hama just would have been like, "Hey, I have a surprise for you. I'm a waterbender"?
We'll never know.
We will never know.
Also, it was nice in this episode that's called the Puppet Master, and then while they're going through like the closets, like all those creepy puppets fall out.
Yeah, we never really talk about that. No,
She's just into puppets.
Yeah, no, there's just
It's
like
foreshadowing.
some of that, and I guess I kind of thought that Hama was supposed to be, was it Grand's like missing friend or whatever Katara's story was.
Yeah, she was.
She was.
yeah, remember we get that entire flashback sequence with Hama and Kana when they were younger, and the Fire Nation raid shows up, and all those like fireballs come, and then we slowly watch everyone get abducted and disappear, and it's really tragic.
I'm not gonna lie, when all those puppets came out of that closet, it was a little bit of a letdown for me. I was like, oh, that's why they call her the Puppet Master. That's why this episode's called. That's why this episode's called the Puppet Master.
No, it's because she bends you with your blood and you become her puppet.
And then when I found out that's what she does, when I found out she's a bloodbender, I was like, okay, this episode finally has its coolness back.
You mean this creepiness back?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how Hama like really couldn't control Katara for very long, because obviously Hama's never actually bloodbent a waterbender, and someone who's younger and more skilled at this point.
Yeah, it was good.
But it was an interesting moment where we get the flashback of Hama and the other waterbenders. They're the ones who like captured that Fire Nation ship in the pilot episode of Avatar, the one that they like kind of go through and like set off the traps in the pilot. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
So it was interesting to like kind of bring that back, because we did get multiple flashbacks to season 1. Mm-hmm. And the full moon is interesting too. I've noticed in this season, I think it was probably just a mistake on, like, just an oversight on the creator's part, but it's only supposed to be like 2 months between the end of season 2 and the invasion. But I feel like we've seen like 6 full moons so far this season. Mm-hmm. There's always a full moon.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Maybe the cycle's different.
Okay. I will say, I don't know if you noticed, but like Hama, I feel like she and Toph share the same hairstyle.
Oh, kind of like big bun.
But also like bangs in the face, like just like hair in the face where they don't really need to see their eyes.
Well, I don't think Hama has bangs in the face. I think they kind of like fell in her face throughout the episode.
Right. But it was a very similar style that Toph has. Mm-hmm. Like, no, obviously it's not identical, but there was just a couple different moments that I noticed. I was like, oh, kind of Toph-like.
So what did that do for you? Kind of making that connection.
Well, it didn't do anything. It just made me feel like I should bring it up. Anyway, I'm done with the Puppet Master.
I'm not. So let's talk about the ability that Hama kind of encouraged Katara to think creatively with waterbending. Like, she uses the line, there's water in places like you'd never think of. I thought it was really interesting that she was like dehumidifying like the air and pulling water out of plants. What'd you guys think about that?
No, it's just another trick up a waterbender's sleeve. I feel like there's been more tricks coming out of the waterbending nation than any other nation that we've seen thus far. I mean, with Toph.
Metal bending.
Yeah, Toph.
And Troy gets the notes back so he can get the pronunciation of Toph right.
That's right. Now, yeah, when we were just so stuck on her just being able to bend rocks, and then she gets captured and she breaks out of a metal cage, I was like, yay, yeah, that's one more trick up her sleeve. But then she can't bend wood. I was like, what the?
Oh, stop. I'm done talking about the wood thing.
That's fine.
We've seen in the Puppetmaster, they are bending the wood more by like taking the water out of it, and then the trees explode.
Can any nation bend wood? Is that just one of those unbendable?
It's not a nation, they're benders. Can any country in the world bend wood?
Can they?
Well, Hugh from the Swamp episode, he bends vines. So I think if you are a waterbender of a certain caliber, like, you can bend plants because of the water within them.
Gotcha. That's
like
right.
You can bend a person.
Yes.
So let's talk about the ethics of waterbending, because clearly they are kind of overpowered in a sense. Like, the waterbenders are just kind of, if you're of a certain power of a waterbender, you can just take the water of a living thing and effectively kill it. Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I wasn't really into stealing the water and you kind of steal the life force from it. But I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like, if you're stealing the water from these flowers, then they would just be dead.
Yeah, they're all brown, and I mean, they are dead because they have that moment where they're admiring the fire lilies, and then Hama takes all the water from it, and then Katara like looks at them and is like, "Oh, it's a shame about the flowers, though." And so Katara like has this moment of like, "Well, maybe this isn't a direction I should take my power." And Hama just dismisses her entirely. She's like, "And they're just flowers."
You know, I think it's one of those other things. Like, when I think of water, I think of life, and it's a very vibrant element or something. And so to kind of have that negative, like, oh, water is not life. It can be, or I don't know, just like it was just an interesting visual.
And I thought it was really clever of the creators to do an episode dedicated to the dark side of bending water, because, I mean, we've just looked at fire as the evil element, and clearly what we've just been shown is that any element used for poor reasons or reasons of malice can be used for evil. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed this episode. I didn't enjoy it as much when I first watched it because I thought bloodbending was a little kind of a weird thing. But I did think at the end of the episode it was kind of weird that Hama's like, "Congratulations, Katara, you're a bloodbender." And like the people of the village don't question it. Like they're just escorting away this like crazy old woman that no one like looks at her and is like, "Wait a second, can we talk about this?"
Yeah, no, that was definitely a plot hole for me. I was like, oh man, way to blow your cover, Katara. Then nobody says anything about it. I'm like,
Right.
Well, maybe she kidnapped the dumbest village.
So, yeah. But Old Man Ding, I didn't remember Old Man Ding at all, and he was a delight. So I'm happy that we...
Yeah, he was a highlight.
Okay, so Troy, what do you think is going to happen with Katara and her ability to bloodbend?
I feel like she might have a little bit of fun with Azula and those girls, May and
Tylee.
And Toph.
And
Okay, so moving on. So now we watched Nightmares and Daydreams, the penultimate episode before the invasion, which the invasion episodes are called The Day of Black Sun. So, Nightmares and Daydreams, we get this like intense battle episode where Aang is just losing his mind.
Right. I mean, I could definitely relate to Aang of just like you have something coming up and you know you need to go to sleep, but you can't. And then, having nightmares or just being so worried and worked up.
Never in this show have I seen a character moment so reflective of Katie until Nightmares and Daydreams. Like, you were Aang.
Yeah, that's special. So that's a fun visual, isn't it?
And then I'm more like Sokka, which Katie referenced, because at the beginning, Sokka's just like, "Hey, we're here. We got 4 days. Good night." And Sokka's out. Mm-hmm. And Troy, right at the beginning of this episode, we sit down. We're enjoying ourselves. Katie's got a coffee. We just ate some apple fritters. We turn on the Blu-ray. Troy makes the announcement, quote unquote, "This better not be a weird episode." And then we're given, I would say, arguably, the weirdest freaking episode in the entire 61 episode run.
Oh, God, I love that I made that comment right before the show started.
It was pretty... Obviously, you're picking up like on a gut feeling. And you're like, this is like a weird vibe.
Well, it says Nightmares and Daydreams. I'm just like, okay, so it's got a pretty cool title.
And they're gonna squander it.
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because you've never said that before also.
Ever.
Like, it's not like something like every time you watch it, Troy's like, well, this better not be a weird episode.
So Troy has got some gut feeling going on, almost like Sokka. Do you want to go get some lottery tickets?
To which Katie says, there is no weird episodes in this show. To which our main characters then come crawling out of a bush. And I was like, yeah, no.
No, it was weird through and through.
There's like so many great lines in that episode. I've always been famously annoyed by this episode. Like, I would say this was one of my least favorite episodes of the entire series.
Well, because if you have to look at them, they all look strung out.
Yeah, because Moi was like, they took it in some weird directions. Like, one of the guys who was in charge, like, I think he was a director or like one of the concept artists, like he was super into anime, and so he kept like designing things of Aang just looking like a traditional anime character and like giving them to Mike and Brian, be like, "Hey, can we do this with Aang?" And they'd be like, how about not?" And so I think this episode they just let him run wild, and they're like, "Hey, just make him look like every anime character ever, have fun, don't show the royal parts."
No, this episode was like literally the day that the writers just kind of like took a break and they're like, let's make a psychedelic episode. Let's like mess with some minds.
Why didn't we do mushrooms before we watched this episode?
Why didn't we? I was just thinking that. Like,
can you imagine?
No. Well, I think the Appa and Momo part would have been.
Okay,
I mean, it was already so great.
That was me thinking, darn it, Nickelodeon, just when I thought this show had matured a little bit. Nope, you guys got to bring it all the way down to like tunes and silly. And I'm like, no.
Tunes.
We're
tunes. You sound like Judge Doom.
tunes.
Oh my God, it's Dip!
Who?
Okay, Jordan had the
Anyway,
craziest face.
so
it was
this-
very scary.
Well, yeah, because it was dip. I was going to be dissolved.
Obviously, we don't need the backstory about this episode. It just sucked.
What? That episode
Guys.
did not suck.
It sucked for me.
No,
We
you
laughed, and we laughed at how cool it was.
special.
We
No,
laughed,
Troy,
and we
you were
laughed.
giggling. You all three of us.
I was like,
all-
ha ha, this episode is so stupid.
But I do appreciate that they took the opportunity to give like the super light, fluffy episode before what we assume is going to be fairly intense going into Invade the Fire Nation. And so with that, I do appreciate the balance.
On that note, I do want a shirt or a
shirt?
backpack or a bag of some kind
Sure, a backpack.
of Appa holding 4 or 6 swords.
Oh yeah, like Samurai Appa.
That was the one scene. As weird as it was the highlight of the episode for me, for sure.
I just think they just said screw it. Like
Yeah,
let's just be as crazy
screw
as
it,
possible in
let's
this
do it.
moment.
and the fans, were you going to be on the side of Appa or Momo?
I was just on the side of the sheep.
Yeah.
I feel like I was on Momo's side actually.
That was great.
Okay, but back to the Appa Momo thing, how that even started, just like Momo talking to Aang, and then Aang's like, and they're like, what is going on? And then,
What, you never tried talking to an animal before?
not in those sense, I mean, I just assume they all speak English, because have you seen a movie? They always speak English. So when it's like, you get Katara, Sokka, Toph, like, kind of like making a comment about Aang, and then you get Appa standing on his hind legs, he's like, you've got to take care of yourself. You can't go on like this. I lost it. I forgot about it.
Was that the same guy who voices Appa?
Yep. So it's D. Bradley Baker. He does both Momo and Appa's like animal voices, and then he did their voices.
Oh, that's funny.
But I like that you get like this Appa and Momo, like they obviously have some beef with each other.
That dude, that actor, he's just in the recording booth trying to do their voices. He's like, no, come on, guys. Like, this
I'm
is just
sick and tired of this guy telling me what to do.
yeah, that was good.
You want to go? You want to go right
You wanna
now?
go right now? Yeah.
Okay, getting into some lore for the series. Momo, the creators have stated that there was an original plan for Momo to be revealed to have been the reincarnation of Monk Gyatso. So they were going to like explore that at some point, which would have made this whole episode a lot weirder. So, okay, we got like the weird visions. We got like some really great lines when Aang's like freaking out about having to take down the Fire Lord, the baddest guy in the world. Like Sokka makes some comment about it and Aang freaks out. Katara kind of chastises him and Sokka says, hey, that's the deal. He knows it.
Classic.
Love that line.
It was interesting to see Zuko being waited on as like royalty. And obviously that's something we haven't really seen that much of, is him being waited on hand and foot. Here's a hot towel. Do you want this? It's like, oh, let's carry you across.
Across the street.
Yeah.
And we also get to see like adoring fans. Like apparently Zuko is beloved at this point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what did you think about him being invited to the meeting or not invited to the war meeting? And how it went?
Him not invited to the war meeting, I kind of got it, but at the same time, I don't know, the fact that Azula got invited, but he didn't, I was like, oh, there you go, they're gonna hurt his feelings again.
But see, I'm curious on what the direction actually was. Like, was it expected that he be there as the crown prince, and so Zuko's just thinking too much about it, or was he maybe explicitly not invited, and then the day of, they're like, oh, where's Zuko? Like, oh, we should probably go get him. Or like, well, I don't know. Or is it like a whole mind game that Ozai's trying to play?
What I enjoyed that the animators did is that he had been away from home for so long with Iroh, to the point where he was out for a brief minute traveling by himself, and anybody who he came across hated the Fire Nation, and once they found out that he was the prince, they hated him all the more, even if he did good stuff. So you're seeing the Prince Zuko that came back home was not the same Zuko that had to flee home. He's a changed person, and you can just feel the turmoil in his heart and in his head. And May is trying to comfort him, the most human she's been, and he's like, I'm the prince that my dad wants me to be, but it isn't me. To me, that was I mean, I still don't like Zuko, but that was a very proud character moment for me. I was like, it's about damn time.
So are you, in your mind, like Zuko's not all like too far gone at this point, or what do you mean?
Oh, he's too far gone, but I just enjoyed that sentence. I'm like, yeah, I still don't care about you, but that was pretty good. That was pretty slick.
I mean, I do appreciate. So to counter, I do think when Zuko left the Fire Nation originally, I do think he was of a pure heart, because remember, the only reason he had to duel his father in Agni Kai was that Ozai in a war meeting proposed putting out new recruits as like bait to like be, you know, sent out to slaughter as an ambushing tactic.
Yes.
And so Zuko spoke out against that, showing that Zuko in that moment had like a pure heart and was coming from a good place, and then had to duel his father. And I think a lot of the anger that Zuko experiences is a result of that, and he kind of spirals out of control from being banished. And so I think the Fire Nation has never seen like the terrible Zuko that we got to know.
Well,
Right.
that's probably also true. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the visions that Aang has. Aang talks about, just in passing, like Toph's tiny bladder like gets them killed or whatever, just all these things. And
Sokka's inability to rock climb.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nothing. When you said the tiny bladder, Troy like looked at me. I'm like, don't look at me.
Well, yeah, because I thought of you
Did I
the
look
second
at you?
like they said that.
Yeah, I know Jordan was thinking of me. I think you just did it.
So for our listeners that have never met me, which is pretty much all of you, I got my eyes just
You
go
got
all over the
shifty
place.
eyes?
Very, very shifty eyes.
You
And
do?
And it's kept me from getting a few jobs, believe it or not.
Oh, what? Like what with the FBI?
Yeah.
Son, you're a little too shifty. Okay, so
Look me in the eye, Troy.
Tiny bladder.
Whoa.
the idea of using visions in any sort of storytelling, I think, is very important, and you have to do it carefully because it gives you the sense that you're foreshadowing things. And the only visions that actually have some weight to them are like the crazy apocalyptic one that Aang experiences, where he's like emerging from the ground like he's a zombie, and then you get this like weird image of like Aang standing with his back to the camera, and then just like all of like the Fire Nation palace like kind of warps in front of him. And then you see Toph, she turns around and her face is gone. I don't know if that's like some Ko the Face Stealer kind of foreshadowing going on, but it's like you see that. You see Sokka be like engulfed by like a mountainside, like he just gets like eaten by the earth. Katara looks like she's gonna get caught on fire. Aang tries to save her. Aang freezes literally, and then you get that moment of Aang under the water, kind of like in this book 1 finale when Zuko was under the water and needed to like get himself out of there with his firebending. But then you look up, and then there's Zuko standing over the ice, staring at Aang as like Sozin's comet like stretches out behind him. Like that was, they were just weird visions.
Okay, honestly, this is my final say on this episode. It felt like a huge waste of time. Primarily because Aang was so close to reaching control of the Avatar state. If it was 4 days before the battle, if I was Aang, I would go into the Avatar state, try to master those chakras. His friends don't need to know that whether or not he completed his training.
Well, he can't go into the Avatar state right now. His chakras are so warped up from the scar and from going into the Avatar state, almost dying, and then coming back from that. So his chakras are locked. He can't do it. But it was interesting that he didn't even attempt.
Right, that's what I was like. It felt like a wasted episode that he didn't even attempt. It just felt like a good old filler episode.
Right.
Well, but I think Jordan's right. It's just assuming the invasion is going to be an intense episode, because some of the ones we've watched have been really intense, and so it was nice to have this stupid, silly, haha episode, because maybe the next one's not going to be that.
I sure hope not.
Especially because the Puppetmaster like wasn't very funny either. It was a dark episode. But I do want to talk about those visions. I mean, what did the visions do for you? I mean, because they were very frightening and very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just super warped, like dream nightmares can be. And yeah, I mean, I think it was just a lot of fears, and then you just see Aang tripping out. And I think he also knows, I mean, there's probably this really huge fear knowing that he actually didn't complete his training, right? He voiced that he doesn't have any firebending under his belt.
So he's not a fully realized avatar.
Right. And so it's definitely making him vulnerable.
And I do think the vision with Zuko, like standing over him kind of in a dominating way, is like the comet appears in the background. I think that might just be Aang's fear that he's going to be so passive that Zuko's going to like reemerge as like this villain in his life and use the power of the comet to like help take over the world. But then there's like that weird one where you have Momo and he goes, shh.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And then the meteor falls and like creates like an atomic explosion. They're just really weird. And I just think if you're going to use a vision, like it needs to foreshadow something. And I just want to know what they're foreshadowing.
Right. It's just the upcoming battle might just sweep them away, especially if Aang's not prepared. So he's trying to prepare by overtraining, but instead of getting sleep, he just keeps training and training and training and training. This episode was also painful for me to watch because the way Aang was with the huge bags underneath his eyes, that's how I felt for the last 3 years on the early morning shift at my current workplace. I just finally got off that shift and I feel human again. But there was many nights.
Human again.
Huh?
There's a Beauty and the Beast song called Human Again.
Oh, okay. And for a good few years there, I was getting maybe 5 or 6 hours of sleep, just because I would go to bed when I was supposed to, but my body knew I had to wake up in the middle of the night to go to work, so I would have trouble falling asleep. And then by the time I finally went to my deep sleep, I got maybe 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and then I'd come home and I'd take like an hour or 2 hour nap. But I was never feeling human. And then on my weekends, I would sleep in a ton. I just had nothing left. And so watching Aang go through his excruciating loss of sleep it just brought back, hard times with my job.
Oh,
It's so hard to function when you're so tired.
when you're tired and you have like something really important coming up.
Right, and you know that you need rest, but you can't. And obviously Aang's very afraid to fail.
Again.
And knows the impact that'll have on the world, and there is a ton of pressure. And right, the other three are like, oh, it's fine.
Because they don't have that same weight on them.
Exactly.
Yeah, which Sokka had to really rub in his face. Yep, that's the deal. If you don't succeed, we all die. That's the deal.
It's all good. Like Sokka's gonna resign to his fate.
But our friends made that nice comfy bed, which looks super great. I'm like, yeah.
By shaving all of the koala sheep.
But what did they shave it with?
Probably the same thing that Aang shaves his head with. And Sokka shaves his head with.
Aang doesn't shave his head.
He currently does not, but he famously does. So,
Famously he does.
I do have one other line that I really appreciate. My brother and I would quote it pretty regularly. It was when Sokka was like, looks like it's time for another therapy session. It's just like the way he said it was like really delightful to me.
I feel like it was not like what you just
Therapy
said.
session. Therapy session. Therapy session.
What are you putting like a fake Tillamook hick accent into
I
it?
don't know what I'm doing to it. Therapy session. I can't
The way
do
he
it.
says
I
it,
don't know.
No, you're
my
definitely
tongue.
so off.
Looks like it's time for another therapy session.
I feel like it's more like that.
Okay, you give it to me,
like
Katie.
Sokka gives it a hint of a deep voice
Therapy
with a little bit of
session.
authority.
I don't know what you're doing. No. Okay, we're done here.
Okay, so the next
so that
two
was
episodes.
proof that Jordan hears things differently than I do.
No, I think we do. I think we hear it the same. I just can't emulate it like I used to.
For another
Oh, is that
therapy
it?
session.
Yeah, I haven't done this for like 10 years.
Another therapy session.
Therapy session.
Just-
I know what we're doing after this. A therapy session.
Okay.
Great, I'm gonna have daydreams and nightmares about him saying that.
Nightmares and daydreams.
Nightmares
Okay,
and nightmares.
so
So the next
episodes.
Troy, what's gonna happen?
The next episodes are called The Day of Black Sun.
So the next episode we're gonna get a sun that's black.
Wow.
What?
That was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my whole life.
That was totally meant to be about an eclipse, but then as soon as I said it,
Yeah,
like,
I was like,
that was
that's
a little
not-
wrong.
And so we're gonna get another savior.
Which is
All right, let's
blowing that one out of
okay, you two.
proportion.
So
I think you both need another therapy session. All right.
therapy session. There we
No.
go. Yeah, it was
No.
like therapy session.
I don't think so.
No, I'll practice.
Okay.
So Day of the Black Sun.
Day of Black Sun, not Day of the Black Sun.
Well, God, that's
The
just
Day of Black
terrible.
Troy,
Sun.
just say what you think is gonna happen in the next episodes.
Freaking Fire Lord.
Don't say the title.
Fire Lord Ozai better keep his pants on.
That
Wow.
was weird. My royal parts are showing.
This
Oh,
better not be a
God.
weird episode.
Well, it was.
What do you think Zuko's gonna do? He's in the Fire Nation capital. They're going to invade the Fire Nation.
Right? Are they gonna surprise him? And Zuko's like, "Oh, I knew you were still alive.
Hey guys!
Where's the guy I hired?"
Zuko's gonna be Zuko's gonna be the next Fire Lord Nation spy.
Fire Lord Nation spy.
What? No.
They're
Fire
gonna
Nation.
find a son, and he'll be black.
Okay.
Okay, what?
You should stop asking because I don't care.
You don't care?
I'm literally just waiting for.
Troy's just here to collect his check.
Avatar State. Avatar
To
State.
say.
Use it all. Use all the elements.
And Boss
Zuko.
Sing Say.
All right, kids.
Okay, so something's gonna happen.
And Troy doesn't care.
So we're just gonna watch one more episode, huh?
What? Katie, I'm done talking to him. Are you excited for the Day of Black Sun episodes?
Yes, I am.
How many
Me
are there?
too. I'm not gonna tell you. It's the rest of the season. It's 12 episodes. It's a long invasion. It's gonna be like a Dragon Ball Z fight.
Therapy session.
You need to edit that out.
Dun 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 dun.
All right, Yippers.
It's already bad enough for the Black Sun.
Yep.
Yep.
Therapy session.
No.
Looks like it's time for another therapy session.
No. Do your Sapphire, Mr. Fire. What's his name?
I'm Wang Fire, and this is my wife, Sapphire Fire.
Yeah.
Therapy session.
No. Stop. I want a lisp. Or like, get your tongue out.
It sounds like he's doing
fuck's
a
sake.
lisp. Therapy session. See? Therapy session.